Well, as the weather warms up, occupiers are aiming to revive the movement. But there are signs that the civil war is brewing within Occupy Wall Street, with organizations like moveon.org jumping on in. Some say the establishment left is trying to co-opt the movement to get President Obama reelected. To talk more about the future of the movement, I'm joined now by Jesse LaGreca, an activist and writer at the Daily Kos. Hi, Jesse. Nice to see you. So I know that you have
Thanks for having me on.
Been part of this movement from the very beginning. How do you feel about this?
You know, it really doesn't bother me that much, because the way I look at it is, if we're going to sit there and call ourselves the 99%, it kind of doesn't make sense to exclude about 60 million Obama voters and really look at it from this perspective. To me, activism is like a tackling dummy. You know, one guy hits one side, the other guy hits the other, and you push forward together. So if some people are more focused on electoral activism, by all means, go ahead and do so.
Exactly. I mean, wouldn't that be a plus if more people are coming on board and supporting the movement?
Oh, absolutely. In order to grow a movement that really speaks for the concerns of working class people, we should be inviting everybody in. To me, the opposite seems like just absurdity to say, like, oh no, if you weren't a real, original occupier, you're not part of the team. This is for everybody. We should open our arms to anybody who shares the same ideas we do.
Can you then, there are some skeptics, I guess, about this party, people that are now jumping on board. Can you define what would characterize them and what would characterize the true occupiers?
Well, I think people maybe grabbed onto certain language because it became popular. It became pretty obvious. We are the 99% versus an oligarchic 1% that, basically avoids reality. But at the same time, to me, it speaks of the popularity of Occupy Wall Street. I mean, really look at it like this. If organizations like moveon.org are using our language, that means we're winning. That's good. So, it doesn't really concern me that much about splitting up who gets the credit for coming up with what term or what organization they belong to. I don't see David Koch and Rupert Murdoch fighting about who's co-opting whose side of the movement. I don't think we should do the same.
Speaking of Republicans, some compare this to the Republican establishment benefiting and taking over the Tea Party. What do you make of that comparison?
Well, when people talk about co-opting, they're not totally out of reality. There is a great potential to take a message that's beneficial and numb it down to something that's corporate friendly. But the difference was that the Tea Party was demanding that the Republican Party be more extreme, be more beholden to corporate wealth. Whereas Occupy Wall Street and organizations on the left are doing something that the Democratic Party kind of doesn't want to do. They don't want to stand up for reasonable tax rates on the rich. They don't want to slow down the corporate consumption of basically all of our civil rights. So if anything, we're coming at it from the other way. I don't think it makes sense to compare the two, because we're demanding that Obama do more to protect working class people, whereas the Tea Party is demanding that we, fight back against the gay Muslim Mexican women who are demanding, reproductive rights in America or whatever they're worried about.
All right, Jesse, going to switch gears a little bit. I know there is some controversy now over occupiers sleeping on sidewalks. Now, they were kicked out of Zuccotti Park, but now police want to evict them from sidewalks. What do you know about that?
I actually have a bunch of friends who have been staying downtown later at night, and basically here's how it goes.
We're actually looking at some video, sorry to interrupt you there, of this happening.
We have a little saying within Occupy Wall Street, which is that it gets confusing when the law changes every day. We were initially informed that we were within our rights to sleep on the streets as long as we didn't block traffic. Then the police decided to enact the law a different way. We currently have Norman Siegel, a noted civil rights attorney, who's looking into our rights. And to be honest, I look at the freedom of assembly as a definite. I shouldn't have to ask where it applies. I keep a constitution in my pocket because that is my permit. And if anything, I find it strikingly absurd that with all the problems in New York City, Mayor Bloomberg allows the NYPD to focus on this, a triviality among many other larger issues.
Well, it looks like occupiers are going to try to fight back where they can. Jesse, I know that you are one of many that are hoping to revive this movement this spring. And what do you hope to accomplish this spring that wasn't accomplished already?
Oh, there's so much work to do. I mean, the banksters have gotten back into their systematic exploitation of everybody. They refuse to lend. They've got tons of money to spend on political campaigns, but they can't be bothered to pay any higher taxes at all. To me, the entire purpose is to push the conversation forward, to demand a change of laws that benefit people, whether it's bringing back Glass-Steagall, overturning Citizens United. This is where the electoral side comes in, because we can march all we like. At some point, we have to elect people who are going to change the laws in a way that benefits people. And I think there's a world of work to do, and I'm glad to be started back again.
All right, Jesse, thank you very much for coming on the show. That was Jesse LaGreca, an activist and writer at the Daily Kos.